Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a new episode of Flesh Wound Farce, where we review and discuss your and our favorite comedy films. This is the world's first and only combination trivia host and professional wrestling announcer of Chilean descent that currently resides in Southern California, Ozzy V. And with me, as always, on this program, first in the Northern California Bay Area, world-famous juggler Greg Larson. How you doing, Greg?
Look, WrestleMania is coming up and VR has been good lately, so life is fantastic. How about yourself, Ozzy?
I'm doing well. I'm going to be completely honest. We're 1 week away from WrestleMania. Recording this on March 26th. I'm getting ready to ramp up with the next week of trivia. Now, obviously, this is going to be released in a few weeks, but I'll be starting trivia 4 nights a week. Looking forward to that. I did want to point out, looks like I've not seen that jersey before. Is that a new one?
I don't know if it's made the podcast, but I've had it for quite some time. It's specifically for this episode, though.
Oh, look at that. Very well. For those listening to the audio version, you have the Hill Valley Gigawatts. Fantastic. Also with us, Flesh Wound producer Todd in his
undisclosed location.
Undisclosed location, missing his regular he's got a pillow there in terms of decorations. Don't. We don't need to get me angry because it's a reason to be happy for this episode, as we will be reviewing and discussing Clue, which was released on December 13th, 1985. But as a special treat, we do have with us the director of the Clue documentary, Who Done It, Jeff Smith. How are you, Jeff?
Hey, here I am. Hi, I'm doing well. Good to be here, guys.
So glad to have you on. It was hilarious to see, actually. I want to congratulate you. With this movie was coming up on the pipeline because we had a lot of the Patreon members requesting it.
And we had them requesting it because of the documentary.
Oh.
Look at that.
Nice. Okay.
Absolutely. And plus, what's even better is this just became available on Prime this past week on Amazon Prime and Paramount Plus. So it just hit the streaming sites. What was really odd about it is I had the email that said movies we think you'll enjoy, right? And it had like John Wick, Terminator 2, Clue. Wait a second. It had like all these action movies and then just Clue in the middle. So I don't know if it was in my DMs or anything like that. But I'm going to give you credit there because you're generating interest on this movie. And like it said, it didn't have a lot of, it wasn't really popular when it came out. So that's got to feel pretty great to get all this extra attention.
I've been pretty surprised that over the years, I've been working on this documentary for about 5 years. And when I started, I really didn't know too many people that were into Clue. And they've kind of slowly over the years have been presenting themselves. And now, what fabulous timing to have a Clue documentary that all these people suddenly have showed up and are listening to Clue. As I knock my microphone over.
And also, congratulations on your Blu-ray. Was like one of the quickest selling ones from the Vinegar Syndrome partner labels. That slipcover was gone, and yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah, I couldn't even get a slipcover.
Oh, sorry. I got one, but I have one because I didn't know it was going. I didn't know it was going on sale until the day it was on sale, where they emailed me and went, "Hey, it's up. You might want to promote it." And I thought, I'll buy one first. And then I'll promote it.
Smart move.
Yeah.
All right. So before we dig deeper into this conversation, a little bit more information. Again, released on December 13th, 1985, rated PG. This was an 80s PG, so it'd probably be a PG-13 by today's standards. I guess that'd be fair, maybe. It's moments.
Borderline.
It is borderline. If there was a borderline between PG and PG-13, I think that'd be it.
PG-13 is basically an R rating now with that nudity, so it's
is it? Okay. Well, fair enough. But moving on, Todd, do you have a trailer ready?
I do.
Excellent. Let's see it.
Every person in this room has the perfect motive.
Stand back!
For murder.
What do you mean?
Murder.
But only one of these suspects is the murderer. Is it the timid Mr. Green?
Why are you screaming? Because I'm frightened of what? Screaming!
Or the militant Colonel Mustard?
If I was the killer, I would kill you next. Huh? Sit.
Mrs. White, who helped her husband on his way?
Well, it's a matter of life after death. Now that he's dead, I have a life.
Miss Scarlet, who's helped many men along the way?
Practice makes perfect.
Professor Plum, who's looking for a way?
I'm looking.
Mrs. Peacock?
I have absolutely no idea what we're doing here, but I am determined to enjoy myself.
Or did the butler do it?
No.
Paramount Pictures invites you to an evening of mystery,
Let us in!
murder,
This is getting quite serious.
and madness. In the movie that makes a scene of the crime. It's not just a game anymore.
Does anybody know what score that music is actually from?
That was Elmer Bernstein with Airplane, actually.
That was Airplane score. Yep, absolutely.
I thought that was
Nice.
interesting to hear that instead of the John Morris. But
Yeah,
still, I guess, comedic score nonetheless.
Paramount.
Exactly. Again, the movie has a runtime of 97 minutes, directed by Jonathan Lynn, with the story by John Landis and Jonathan Lynn. I love how your Duck goes into so much detail about the creation of the script and ultimately the production itself, with John Landis exiting the director's spot. Starring, by today's standard, would be an all-star cast. I mean, still, like, I guess an all-star cast by then, but they didn't hit so many of their peaks. You have Christopher Lloyd, Back to the Future was then. And what's funny, Martin Mull, usually when we review these, if there's a familiar face just bothering me, I'll just like look it up. Where do I remember him from? Your doc nailed it with Mr. Mom. That's exactly who I remembered him from when I saw Martin Mull there. But you also had Eileen Brennan, Tim Curry, Michael McKean. Just Spinal Tap is one of my all-time favorites. I actually find the commentary on Spinal Tap making the movie much better. And also Leslie Ann Warren and Colleen Camp, Lee Ving as well, rounding out the primary 8. So before Clue, initial thoughts on this. I mean, how old were you when you first saw it? And was there, like, when you'd first heard about it, did you have any initial thoughts before you jumped in?
When I first saw it, well, it came out. I'm old enough that I was alive when it came out in theaters, but it was in and out of theaters so fast that I did not see it in theaters. I just remember the big gimmick of Clue when it came out in theaters was it had 3 endings, and depending on which theater you went to, it would be a different killer. So I do remember seeing the marquee at one theater in La Mirada, California, that said Clue, and then it had a box with an A in it. That meant it was the A ending, which I think was the ending where, spoilers, they all did it. But so I didn't see it until it came out on home video. And when it came out on home video, that's where all the endings are included. And that's the way you see it now. And I just kept renting it over and over and over and over again, because that's back in the day when if you wanted to buy a VHS, it was $99. So that was definitely in my heavy rotation of rentals at Video Palace in Fullerton. That, the Michael Jackson Thriller video,
Oh, yes.
Cloak and Dagger, Midnight Madness, and what else is, and Goonies, I guess.
Midnight
And Back to the
Madness,
Future.
That's one for the
Of
future.
course.
One
one?
for the future.
Midnight Madness. That one's I haven't thought of that forever.
It's funny you would say that.
It'll be on the list for sure. Greg, initial
Yeah,
thoughts.
so I saw this movie in high school, and I definitely enjoyed it with some friends. But I think I just enjoyed it the older I got. Like, it just got better and better because I just appreciated every little bit of it. And the fact that, like, I wish I was old enough to see or to have known this in theater having multiple endings. Like, what a great gimmick, like, that you don't see ever. You don't see that kind of thing. So it's just such a brilliant idea. I I watched this today to review it again with my wife, and she'd never seen the movie. And I was trying to tell her about it, and I was like, oh, this got this great all-star cast. And when I mentioned Madeline Kahn, she was like, I've heard that name, but I don't know who that is. I almost got a divorce today, guys. Yeah, no, but
Oh, boy.
this movie's always been one of the classics. So it was great to rewatch today.
Todd?
Well,
Uh-oh.
I did see it in theaters. I was 9 years old when it came out.
Uh-oh.
And I saw it twice, and I ran out of parents. True story. First inning I got was the Mrs. Peacock, and then the second one that my dad took me to, I remember, that was the Everyone one. Yeah. So they did give you little clue cards, like with little check boxes on it too, which I wished. Yeah, well, I'm 9-year-old me.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. So I don't know if you came across any during.
No, I've never seen. I'm sure you would think they'd be on eBay by now. I do have a weird chalkboard that came out in video stores that said, I think you're supposed to write guesses on who was doing it, like in the store.
Right.
It's something I don't remember back in the day, but I get a lot of clue emails now. And so when anything pops up, people say, have you seen this? And then if I want to buy it, I don't promote it. And I buy it, and then I put it up and go, look what this is. And I have it. Which is how I ended up with the matte paintings from the movie as well.
That's really cool.
Totally fair.
Yeah.
Okay, so to be completely honest, this I had always seen this movie in parts, and I had never seen it all the way through from start to finish. Including, I'm pretty sure including the endings, all of the endings. I'd seen a lot of the cop scene, a lot of the motorist scene, like just on TV whenever it was on, and I just never got around to it. But I am glad it did come up. And I think that if this had been introduced to me when I was a lot younger, I probably would have been in the Indiana Jones Back to the Future rotation for sure. And this, well, I think I don't know if you could describe it as a problem, but I had Airplane and all the Mel Brooks movies access to me at a very early age. So this feels like it would have fit right in there, especially seeing Madeline Kahn. That would have been somebody I would have really enjoyed watching. And I would have been I almost feel regret that I haven't been able to reference this more on my trivia nights when I do these stupid music clues. But I'm glad moving forward I will be able to 100%.
Never too late, Ozzy. It's never too late.
I'm looking forward to it. I am curious, as I was watching the doc, the entire time I'm thinking, what is your favorite moment out of the entire film?
It's hard to not just even mention just the last 20 minutes. It's the second Tim Curry says, I know who did it. And furthermore, I'm going to tell you how it was all done. And then it doesn't stop. And it's just him going a mile a minute. And it's the kind of thing that I think one of the reasons people love it is because they want to. I remember as a 10-year-old seeing it, I wanted to put on Clue as a play. And I wanted to play Wadsworth. And then I realized I can't talk that fast or memorize that many lines. It's impossible. But really, once that kicks in, but I've seen it a couple times in the last year or two on the big screen, and it's been fun watching it with audiences now and seeing things that I hadn't seen before. So now my favorite thing is just watching Madeline Kahn, because she's doing weird stuff in the background where she's just kind of making weird faces and hand gestures, and she's picking something off of Professor Plum's back at one point in a scene. It's just really bizarre. And now on the big screen and high def and everything, you can really see things that you never saw on VHS. So now that I've seen it a few times like that, I'll just pick somebody. Michael McKean's doing weird stuff when he goes off to the bathroom to throw up when he finds out that they had monkey's brains in the Mrs. Peacock ending. He goes into the bathroom, and then while he's there, Mrs. Peacock is revealed as one of the killers, and she has the gun. and then Mr. Green comes out of the bathroom. And so if you're watching him in the back, he like comes out, he's wiping his mouth from throwing up, and then he just kind of stops, like, what did I miss? And I had never seen that before either until watching it on the big screen.
I always loved seeing these small bits of detail that everybody's just so into the character, into the moment, that these little bits of magic happen. To your point of just small details, is seeing Yvette still holding the stick that was drawn to her, like throughout the next scene. She's still holding that matchstick, which I couldn't get over. That was hilarious. But I don't want to jump in here too quickly. Todd, how about a favorite moment?
That's a hard one. I mean, the ending is so iconic, but I gotta go with, because I catch myself every time I'm watching it saying the punchlines, and the one in my real life. I've actually done this with Ozzy, and he didn't get it at the time. If anyone ever says, to make a long story short, I wait for it every day of my life.
Too late.
I actually do recall the moment.
You didn't realize he was quoting a movie. You thought he was just being a jerk.
Could have went either
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. But I mean, like, it was kind of par for the course. So
yeah, one doesn't negate the other.
Fair enough.
Greg?
Yeah. Gosh, there's so many to choose from, and I was really having a tough time picking like one specific moment. But I again, the ending, so many great bits within it. But Madeline Kahn, when she finally starts to admit to being the murderer of the maid, just I wonder how much film there is of her actually going off. But like, first off, her moment of telling it was great, but then when Tim Curry was just like, all right, moving on, like that also is just like one great bit after another, was just fantastic. And it just I really want to know how much extra film there was with this movie of them just having fun with it.
I think for the most part, from what I understand, that the flames line you're referring to, flames on the side of my face, is the only ad lib in the entire movie. Everything else is very scripted because it is a murder mystery, and it kind of has to make sense at the end, even with multiple endings. You have to look back and go, okay, that character is not in the scene right now, or something like that. But also, they watched the movie His Girl Friday by Howard Hawks to start before they start filming, because the director Jonathan Lynn wanted the dialogue to just be bam, 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 bam. And it's still, again, going back to watch it in the theater a couple weeks ago, it plays like better than most movies that are in theaters now. It was just fun to watch, and it doesn't feel like an 80s movie. It's probably because it does take place in 54, but there is no, dance song like Dragnet at the end to finish it. That was a big, who done it music rap at the end, which I would have loved to see it actually, but it doesn't feel 80s. It just kind of still plays even today.
Yeah. No, sorry, Todd.
No, I know people always ask, what's your Tim Curry movie? I mean, of course. I mean, this is the first thing I always think of. Even though I'm a horror guy, I think this over Pennywise.
It's actually funny because that's the first time I ever saw Tim Curry was in the role of Pennywise. So when I saw him in these other roles, I was like, huh, I guess he's not an evil clown.
It's funny in the doc, they talk about, the multiple endings being confusing to people. I remember being 9 and not being confused by that concept.
I don't know why. Who knows? They all have different theories about why it wasn't a big success.
Well, it's lead in the gasoline. That's why. They were still getting rid of it. So there you go. It's still in the air. What do you think? What do you think? There's 3 different kinds, but
I'll choose none.
Take that, movie.
Fool of the Nile this weekend.
Well, I did see this theatrically too. I don't know if it was. I was also a big Clue board game fan. It was my favorite game, so I was really excited for this movie. So I guess the concept was easier to grasp, maybe too.
Yeah, they really do lean on the marketing on the game, and with the fact that the tagline is it's not just a game anymore. or it's the who did it in which room and with what. They really leaned on it. But it's funny, on the posters it all says Clue the movie,
Right.
but in the opening credits it just says Clue.
Yeah.
They didn't have to differentiate. Think you're Santa Claus the movie.
Which, by the
15
way,
years
I
apart.
did have that moment in the doc where I was like, wait, did the movie The Santa Claus come out that long ago? And I was
it's
thinking
85,
Tim
yeah.
Allen's Santa Claus. And,
No E.
yeah.
There's another Santa Claus, Greg. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dudley
So okay, Greg,
Dudley
yeah,
Moore, that's right.
the Madeline Kahn line, the Flames line, that was the line that got me and had me in tears to the point where I was missing what happened afterward. I needed to go back and catch up. So I will actually there was actually a line that was said in the doc that actually made me laugh, probably as much as something in the movie, only because of matter of circumstance, is when the director Jonathan Lynn talks about how he was sent to Los Angeles and Jonathan Landis tells him all this stuff. And he's like, okay, well, who done it? He's like, I don't know. That's why I need a writer. And he tells his agent, he's like, I got a bad feeling about this.
Yeah.
I don't think we should continue. He's like, well, make something work. And like he
you're
said,
there.
well, you got you a first class ticket. You got to work for it, right?
Yeah.
And then he talks about, torture, 2 months trying to figure all this out. And then he just puts something together. Landis says it's fine. So he goes back home. He's like, I got this loosely. How's this going to work? And then he finds out that 5 other writers had tried.
Yeah.
And the fact that that to me, that was the curb moment in my head. That's where he heard there's 5 other writers on this. That's the ending of the first episode of the season, where this guy's got to write this movie. But
if they do like the offer of the making of the Godfather movie for Clue, that would be at the end of that episode where he goes, "Oh, it's okay. We had 5 other writers."
I didn't know I wanted that show till this very moment. Paramount Plus, it would work.
That's true. There you go.
I don't see why not. It could just be a miniseries run for 6 episodes.
Instead of doing a reboot with Ryan Reynolds, they could just do a dramatization of Making of Clue.
It's kind of like doing a sequel without doing a sequel.
Well, I think it'd be more like Knives Out than it would be. I don't think they would do it just like the 85 movie. I think it's going to be Clue and murder mystery and probably funny, and that's about it. I would imagine. But they've been talking about a Clue reboot for a very long time. I don't even mention it in the documentary. I was kind of back and forth on it, thinking, oh, do we? Because the only cast member from the original Clue that talked about it was Leslie Ann Warren. And she said she was not pro reboot. But that was basically it. She goes, and no remakes on our way out. I'm like, okay. And then, it's just been talked about for years and years and years. And I'll believe it when I see it.
There was that wasn't it like a tween Canadian show Cluedo? It was 8 episodes.
Oh, maybe that's called Cluedo everywhere else.
Yeah,
so it's very possible.
There's some foreign I haven't got to see it, but it's out there somewhere.
Okay, so that's enough.
There you go.
Yeah, I think the best way to capitalize on this fan base because there's whenever a sequel comes out. When Kingdom of the Crystal Skull came out, part of you was excited, oh, a new Indiana Jones, but at the same time, you're like, oh man, this is gonna hurt, but there's still that feeling, the emotion to revisit the characters, revisit that universe. This would just be something, to your point, like the Godfather series did, just to revisit the making of it almost seems as hilarious as the movie itself. So
the only problem is a lot of the people that made it don't remember a lot about making it. So much of the interviews I did where, I was asking the director and the writer, John DeLynn, so tell me about, there were 4 endings, right? He's like, yeah, I don't remember what that was. You don't?
Maybe they were hanging out with Carrie Fisher,
there might have been some more hay fever. Hay fever in Hollywood.
That's right.
As referencing, as Carrie Fisher was originally slated to be cast as Miss Scarlet, however, unfortunately, due to her going to recap, the insurance companies were the ones that nixed it. Not even the studio had a problem with. But hey, there would have been an interesting, or not to say it would have been, worse by any means, but there is
I
a
can see
certain
it.
type of well, it obviously would have been different. I mean, I don't know if it's to say that it wouldn't have worked, but it just would have been different. It's tough to say.
Well, the weirdest part, I could see her as Miss Scarlet, but Leslie Ann Warren was originally cast as Mrs. White, and that I cannot see
Yeah.
at all. It
Damn.
wasn't originally Madeline Kahn, and I don't know. It's kind of a mystery when Madeline Kahn. I think she auditioned and wasn't going to be in it, and then when Carrie Fisher went out, and then Leslie Ann Warren became Miss Scarlet, then the call was made to Madeline Kahn, which that shouldn't be in any universe. That's
in all
like
fairness,
Greg getting a
anytime
divorce.
you see Madeline Kahn in something, she just takes hold of that role so well that you're like,
Yeah,
I can't see anyone else doing it.
No, she owns her seat in the Muppet movie. Yeah.
So
You can do
what was
anything.
that like for you? Like, as someone who was such a fan of the movie, you got to interview all these great people. Like, how was that experience for you?
It was weird. It was tough. The hardest person to interview was Michael McKean, and it's because I love Clue. I love Spinal Tap. But Spinal Tap is well covered territory, so there's no reason to make a Spinal Tap documentary.
Right.
So the hardest part was staying on topic and knowing I've got him for an hour. The first time he was going to come and do the interview, he got in a car accident on the way and didn't make it. And I thought, oh, well, that's it. But he rescheduled and he came back. And so there's a part in the documentary where he actually mentions how Jonathan Lynn knew Michael McKean from this other movie I had something to do with called Spinal Tap. And I'm sitting like 5 feet across from him going like, oh my gosh. Like wanting to like, oh, can you say that as David St. Hubbins now, please? But did not. So he was definitely the one I was most starstruck. Everybody else that I knew from Clue, it was just kind of weird being in there. And I didn't really think about it. I kind of went in, it was just me and usually one other person. Sometimes my dad came with me to help. We were just so busy setting everything up and then sitting down and going through my list that it was usually on the way home where it kind of hit me. That was weird. I was just in Colin Camp's office.
I got to bring something up, by the way. And I just want to know if anything went through your mind specifically when she was talking about her time. I think it was when they were talking about Daryl. They're like talking about like other movies that she had been in with Michael McKean, and she asks her assistant to look up other movies, and she has to spell out his name for the assistant, like the assistant wouldn't know automatically. And to me, it's like, I would think maybe, that if the assistant doesn't know who Michael McKean is, there might be a problem.
I'm sure the assistant knows. Colin Camp was fascinating. There's a lot of raw footage on Colin Camp where she was talking about this award ceremony they had gone to the night before where they were trying to talk in code because I was there, but where somebody was hitting on somebody. And I've got like an hour of that. And then just talk about that, where I kept like turning off the camera and turning back on. Like, are we ready? Are we ready? There's one point where she stopped in the middle of answering a question to order lunch, which I'll probably put on the Clue documentary website at some point. And then, there's a point where she thought for sure that she'd been in about 5 movies with Michael McKean, and she's only been in 2. But we took that trip around, and you can kind of hear me in the background, and I know she's only been in 2, but I'm not going to say anything.
Of course.
So I'm like, you just hear me being super polite in the background going,
absolutely.
That's it, just 2. But I think the assistant knew how to spell McKean. This is also during Better Call Saul time, so he's pretty popular.
I also had to give a shout out that you found a Tower Records.
You see that?
One of the clips are, that's a Tower.
Yeah.
Wow, like, I mean, I know I could just pull up any song right now, but I kind of just want to go in a store and just see what they have,
Yeah, it's empty. That's in Brea. And it just happened to be, I know it's weird. Most of the times where I'm in the documentary, I'm in a car, and that's just because I feel weird sitting in front of a camera. I know I look like I'm making some weird incel video sitting in a car talking about,
pro wrestling
weird
promo.
Yeah. Just sitting there going, and so, John Landis did direct. He went and made Spies Like Us. But yeah, there's one part where I'm on by the Brea Mall, and there's an empty Tower Records that still has the sign, but it's just empty. And it is, yeah, very big in the background. And I was wondering if somebody was going to notice that. And Ozzy, you're the first person to point it out.
I had to. Excellent choice of clip on the Spies Like Us, by the way.
Yes,
Doctor.
as a matter of fact, that made me go. I think that needs to be on another episode.
It's already on the list. We
There you
can't
go.
just be like 80s farce the entire time. We got to mix it
We can
in.
do what we
Unfortunately,
want.
That's fair.
yeah, we gonna be. There's somebody out there that has an issue with 80s comedies, and I don't know what happened in that person's childhood to make them hate life. But hey,
No.
I want to just try and mix it up.
Yeah. Who? That's a terrible person. I don't even want to know that person.
I mean,
You're not
I
welcome
don't
here.
want to. I may not
No,
want to like
no.
have lunch with them, but I would, I wouldn't mind if they
Well,
listened
you know
to
what?
the show.
I would want to have lunch with them because I would just go, okay, why? What is it? What do you like? What brings you joy? And it's probably something dumb.
Yeah,
It's
maybe
like,
Look, if they
coin
want to be a
collecting.
Patreon so we can figure that out and we can
Yeah.
be closer, by
Yeah.
all means.
Donate and come on the show and talk for 20 minutes about why you hate 80s movies.
yeah,
Uh,
that sounds like a good idea.
It's like a dunk
Come
Come on,
tank.
let's go.
Yeah.
Ozzy's ready to debate.
I am so ready.
Like Gene Simmons, you get these ideas for cash.
Oh, Ozzy will shill for a T-shirt even when he doesn't want to. I do want to say, Jeff, first off, it's great to see you. It's been some time, but seeing you in
People
this
don't know.
documentary-
We know each other we could know each other for years. This is fun.
And-
It's fun to do a podcast with people I actually know.
I just want to say, I really appreciated how much you let the people in your documentary be the stars. I see a lot of these documentaries and the documentarians feel this need to have their moment. And sure, you were in it in multiple moments to progress the story of it. But I really appreciate how much you let the people tell their stories within this. So if anyone hasn't seen this yet, please go check out this documentary. It's a lot of fun. So, but thank you for letting these people have even people who might not get a moment to be in front of a camera, have their moment.
Yeah, I mean that was kind of part of the journey of this. Originally, when I was doing it, it was just the documentary. It was just because I'd never seen anything behind the scenes on Clue before, so I thought it would be just kind of like my version of DVD extras. And then meeting all these people, they became the Who and the Who Done It. So the first half is really very much making of the movie, and then it's the people that have taken this movie that did not do well in 1985 and have brought it to this level, and now it's all because of them. And the people that made Clue don't necessarily understand it. I think they're starting to get it now, but that was part of the fun of asking them, "Can I talk to you about Clue?" With these people with amazing filmographies that have done a ton of other movies. That said, why? I said, no, because people love it. They didn't know.
Really?
They didn't know. Yeah. Oh, okay. I guess I don't remember anything, and then it was pulling teeth to try to get them to remember anything.
Wow.
So, what is from the entire experience? What is your favorite story that you could share that didn't make it through on the, I guess, communicate?
That's not on there. All the good ones are on there. That would be pretty lame if this one's just for me. This story's amazing. This is the huge orgy that took place in the billiard room. I won't put that in there. I mean, there were a lot of conversations when the camera wasn't on. It's funny, before we started recording, we were talking about how, hit record immediately because sometimes things happen. So, it would take me about half an hour to set things up, and they would just start talking. And I kept saying, "Oh, let's save that. Let's save that." And I would try to remember. I remember one of the times I did take my dad. He was there on the Michael McKean day. And when I was done with Michael McKean, I did leave the camera rolling because then we were just kind of talking. I do have a picture of me and him just like off to the side of this hotel room talking. It's like my favorite thing. And I honestly don't remember. I remember he said stuff that I'm like, ooh, I'm glad we're recording. I didn't know my dad, who was like still in the mindset of save film, which it wasn't, stopped the camera. So afterwards, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be kind of weird because we're not framed or anything, but I'm glad we got it. And then I go back and look at the footage because that's always the scary thing after you film. I'm never comfortable after the interview until I get home and actually play it. I'm sure you guys have like recorded things and then you go back and go, oh, that didn't record anything. That's like my nightmare to get back and have the audio just not exist or something like that. And then, yeah, I turned it on and went, oh, it stopped right when I said, well, thank you so much. Click. I don't remember what we said, but the photograph, I'm laughing. But I was so dorky with some of these people. That was the hard part of editing this thing, is because I had to listen to myself, like ask questions, and I would stop editing for weeks at a time because I would be, at the table and I'd hear myself go, and I'd have to make fun of myself asking a dumb question and courtesy laughing at something lame. And then I can't listen to myself, and I'd stop. I had to distance myself. Weeks later, come back and go, okay, I know I suck, but I got to get through this.
All right. Well, let's get on to the ratings, because I realize we hit the ratings right after our favorite moments, but we kind of, had a little discussion. Not to say we can't go back to it, but I at least want to get these in there before we trail off any further. But I'll kick it off. It's an obvious 5 from me, so that shouldn't really be a shocker. Greg?
I'm waiting for Jeff to be like, garbage 1.
Negative 3.
No, yeah. This obviously, because it, and I think the documentary said it best, where this hits so many different types of comedy. There's something in it for everybody. And just about any mood you're in, there's going to be a moment in this film that's fantastic. So I'm with you there, Ozzy. It's definitely a 5.
Todd?
The stuff I laughed at when I was 9, I probably still laugh at now, but there's so much more I laugh at now as an adult.
Right.
And if I didn't give it a 1 + 1 + 2 + 1, I would be doing myself a disservice. That's a 5.
Todd, you beat me. I thought of that like an hour ago. As soon as I saw that you did ratings, I'm like, perfect. No,
Actually,
it should be yours.
I actually wanted to save your rating for the last one, because I having this experience of like really delving into it in a rating. If there's anything else you'd like to say about it in like a shorter way than that, obviously wasn't like a 90-minute leveler.
I'll be happy to stop talking about Clue at some point. I will be honest about that. I talk about Clue a lot. But that being said, I also I'm in the middle of a podcast right now with a friend of mine named Brad Gilmore, where we watch Clue 60 seconds at a time and then talk about that 60 seconds for about 20 minutes. So we've really been watching it for the past few months. And it's the kind of podcast, it's going to take a couple of years for it to be finished because it's a 97-minute movie. But that being said, I totally agree with what Greg was saying, where it's somehow the tone of this movie has no tone. It's very bizarre that the first joke of the movie is a poop joke. He steps in dog poop, and then that's a running gag for like 3 minutes, and then they abandon it completely. Then okay, no more poop. But then you have like jokes like, United Nations organization becomes, who, and the initials. And I never, the Dragnet episode you were talking about, you never knew what pagan was. I didn't know what a red herring was until years later. And then just Christopher Lloyd's gross character. He's like super perverse. Yeah, I just think that it's a weird movie that shouldn't work, and it really does. And it's funny that kids can enjoy it, and then people that weren't kids when they saw it can enjoy it too. It's just It makes no sense. And it was Jonathan Lynn's first movie. It's the first movie he ever directed. You can tell that he came from theater because it does feel like a play, and there's a reason why so many people do it as plays now. But that was his first movie, and he's done good stuff since then. He did My Cousin Vinny, which, is great. And the movie called Greedy, which a lot of people haven't seen, but that's Michael J. Fox and Kirk Douglas, and it's really good ensemble cast. Colin Camp in that as well. This is a long answer to say 5 out of 5, but but I will say that I should be sick of it, and I'm not. So that's pretty good.
Right.
Because I know certain movies, if I was forced to see or talk about for years and years and years, that would be the last thing I want to talk about.
All right. So
5, yeah.
I took a wild guess, but I figured I'd figured you'd have some extra stuff you'd want to say, so I want to give you that time to do so. But so transition, I think it would be fun to talk about the board game real quick.
Okay.
I have never played this game.
It's hard to play.
Well,
you need 3 players, first of all. And I know growing up, I didn't have that many friends. So I did not play a lot of Clue.
And Ozzy, and well,
okay, no.
Very many.
let's relax for a second.
Solitaire.
The only reason, like, my parents didn't buy Clue, the board game, is because they didn't understand the concept. See, Chileans have a word called weao that's supposed to be short for huevada, right? That they use for everything. It's like the word thing, but it's like weon, whatever. So when you talk about when you had somebody explain the rules of the game, that was the first time I had heard of the rules explained to me. I had no idea how this game operated or whatever, right? So when I heard, I was like, okay, so the objective is to figure out who did it, where, and with what. To a Chilean, every game would have ended with it was the el weón con la weá and la weá taciomento or whatever. They would just make up words because that's what Chileans do. So I don't think my parents understood it. And we're just like, we don't get it. So we know Monopoly. We get Monopoly. So that's what I ended up with. But I had never, still to this day, played a single game of Clue.
Ozzy, my wife gave me a Star Wars Clue. We can play it. You can figure out Luke killed the AT-AT with, I don't even know. I've never opened it.
It's true. There's so many versions of Clue. You can play Seinfeld Clue. You could play.
Man,
anything.
I
don't think there's an Office Clue, but there's an Office, or maybe
not yet.
There should be. If there's not, I'd be surprised.
But you know what? There is not an official Clue based on the movie characters of Clue. That was, talk about a ball dropped.
Right.
There's an unofficial one that somebody made until he got a cease and desist, and I'm lucky enough I have one, and it's awesome, but it's not, and it's, it's Michael McKean as Mr. Green, and
that's cool,
and everybody, but they didn't do that. I mean, that's the most obvious tie-in ever.
Yeah, especially now.
Yeah,
they can still do it.
There must be a reason, but I can't.
Likeness rights, probably.
I guess
it would be great if it was like on the board game. It was like the board game based on the movie, based on the board game.
I don't
it's
know.
like playing the Street Fighter remake when the movie came out.
Yes.
Right. It's adding Johnny Depp to Pirates of the Caribbean. It just becomes this weird, circle.
Jeff, do you remember? I mean, because you're roughly my age. The Clue VCR games.
Yes, I was very confused by the Clue VCR game because they weren't the people from the movie.
Yes,
I did have it. I don't think I ever got through a full game. I remember just the opening scene. Oh my gosh! I mean, I know we had it.
Yeah.
And I remember they all gathered in a room and there was lightning outside, and that's the only thing I remember. And Mrs. White was the maid. There was no Wadsworth.
You remember way better than I do.
Yeah, I just remember the second it wasn't, Tim Curry and Christopher Lloyd, I was like, out.
Yeah. It's fair.
Yeah. But I do, and I think there is on YouTube that somebody made a documentary about the VCR game because that scared the crap out of me. I saw that on YouTube a few years in. That's the bad thing about taking 5 years to make a documentary. You're just sitting there. Anytime like Joe Blow would put up like what WTF happened to Clue, I'm like, oh no, or like Minty is like top 10 things you know about Clue. I'm like, oh. what's this? And I'm watching it, like biting my nails, going, okay. It's not what I'm doing. They don't have the actual people. That's okay. It's okay. But yeah, I think somebody made the documentary, and I haven't watched it, but now I might, because you're making me think of that terrible.
So you had mentioned Spinal Tap as your other favorite top comedy
Yeah.
of all time. Any other top comedies that you'd want to list?
Sure. I mean, you mentioned at the end, of the documentary, there is a montage of while John Hatch, who's releasing a book on the making of Clue, he talks about 80s nostalgia, and it's an idea that I think I'm working on a documentary about Midnight Madness. I've interviewed a couple people. I interviewed David Naughton, and it would be great to get Michael J. Fox since that's his first movie, but we'll see. But I like the idea of doing a documentary about 80s movies and what they mean to kids of that generation, because it's the first generation that got to watch movies over and over and over and over again because of cable TV, because of VHS. And it really became a part of their everyday life and everyday vocabulary, quoting and whatnot. And there's a little section at the end of Whodunit where it's clips of Karate Kid, it's clips of Last Starfighter, it's clips of all the movies that I grew up with. So any of the comedies in there, Fletch, and it was hard. Some didn't make the cut. Like I did Fletch instead of Vacation, but that's tough. Joe vs. Volcano, we mentioned before I think we started recording, is one of my favorite movies. That's 90. But The Jerk is late 70s, but The Jerk is great. Three Amigos is great. Oh shoot. And if you just think of I loved anything with Dan Aykroyd. I love Dragnet. So I love that. That's why I keep referring to it. I'm glad you guys did that.
Okay, well, I got to ask.
Ghostbusters, of course.
What about Dr. Detroit? You brought up Dan Aykroyd.
I have a terrible confession.
Oh, no.
I have not seen Dr. Detroit.
Oh my God. Todd's going to turn into the Hulk right now.
I have some friends, my good friend that I used to work with at the place we all used to work with, Jovan, who thinks I've seen Dr. Detroit because he recorded a lot, and I never told him I hadn't seen it. And then it became way too late. And you think I would just watch it. But there hasn't been a day in my life where I've got like an hour and a half to kill, and I'm like, where's Dr. Detroit? It just hasn't happened. I know. I'm obviously aware I'm not anti-Dr. Detroit. I definitely would love to. I know his wife is in it. I know he's kind of pervy in that. And it's weird for Dan Aykroyd. I think it was right after John Belushi died when he did that. So he was trying to like find his way. But I have not seen Dr. Detroit. But Great Outdoors is great though.
Oh,
yes.
Dan
Aykroyd.
All right. Well, and Ozzy's
Roby
acting
Craig.
shock. He saw it for like the first time like last year.
No, but I
That's
mean,
Ozzy's
like,
face, though, when Greg didn't know that there was a Dragnet movie, though, too. Like, you really milked that one. Like, you wanted Greg to feel shame on that. I felt bad for Greg.
Listen,
like, okay.
I just go through whatever emotions I'm feeling. I'm just go through whatever emotions I'm feeling, and
no, you're honest. You're an honest broadcast.
I'm honest. That's how we got the Flames line. Was the sheer like that
you were feeling
in the
flames.
moment. I was feeling flames. I felt
That's
flames
fair.
a lot.
Definitely fair. I have two questions for you, Jeff. Like one's for Clue. Like, do you know why they dubbed Mr. Body's lines?
Leaving.
And also, and also, what's the name of your podcast that you're working on? So, because I want to make sure.
The podcast is very clever name, Clue the Movie Podcast. Yeah, I didn't even come up with that. I wasn't smart enough to come up with that. That was Brad, my co-host. And as far as why they dubbed Lee Ving, if you see the documentary, it's one of my favorite things about Jonathan Lin, the director. Lee Ving, if you don't know, is the lead singer of a punk band called Fear. And Paramount really wanted somebody in Clue to be big on Billboard and a musician. And John Lynn did not want somebody that was big. He wanted, actors. And they had different people audition for Mr. Body. Bronson Pinchot was almost Mr. Body. I just recently read. These are things I get so mad. I find out these details after it's done. Like, I would have put that in there. Weird Al Yankovic they were thinking about for Mr. Body. That would have been distressing.
Really?
But, that would have been a little...
Yeah.
Anyway, so he didn't necessarily want Lee Ving. And in the documentary, I asked Jonathan Lin, So how did this happen? How did you get the lead singer from a punk band to be Mr. Body? And he thinks for a moment. He said, at Paramount's request. And that's all I really could say about that. And I go, okay. And then he pauses and he goes, but here's the thing. And then he just goes on about how he's like, hates the fact that he had to cast him. So that's why he gave him the smallest part. I didn't know he was dubbed. It's actually Michael McKeon that told me. And it's not a scene that's in the documentary. It is a scene that's in our outtakes that's on the Clue documentary website, which is cluedoc.com, by the way, where he revealed that he's dubbed. Leaving's voice is not that different, so I was surprised to hear that. And if I had known before I interviewed Leaving that he was dubbed, I certainly would have asked him. My personal theory, and I don't know if it's true, it's probably he's dubbed totally out of spite.
Yeah.
I think he just didn't even want his voice in there. That's my theory, but that is just me as a spiteful person myself. That's what I would have done. So I just assume everybody's a big creep as I am and would have done the exact same thing. Like, all right, I'll put him in there and he's going to be dead like that. And you're not going to hear the voice he's famous for.
Well,
man.
He is a rock star too. Maybe he didn't want to come in for some looping.
Yeah, maybe he was sleeping.
But even
But
then,
he was in
just
Flashdance and he was in Streets of Fire. And
Yep.
if you want to hear his real voice, you can see those movies.
And I think I said that before anyone was even on. Like I didn't even realize like the street, because I know him from Streets of Fire, and the voice is like not that far off. So
No, it's not. If anything, it sounds like Joe Mantegna, which is who I thought it might have been. And I emailed him. I found his email on IMDb Pro, Joe Mantegna, and I just emailed and said, "Were you the voice of Mr. Body?" Did not expect anything, and he responded back like the next day. Went, "Nope." There you go.
Great bit
Joe
in the
Mantegna.
documentary, by the way.
Oh,
I had a great
like saying
chuckle
his name.
for that moment.
Because I really don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but I just go all in. I just say it's not Joe Mantegna.
All right, and that website again was cluedoc.com.
Cluedoc.com. Yeah.
Okay, and Todd, we can make sure we have that in the comments when this goes up.
yes,
Yeah,
and we'll put
excellent.
it in the description.
All right, gentlemen. Any? Well, let's get into the final thoughts here. Jeff, you want to kick us off on that?
Clue is good.
Excellent.
If you haven't seen it, you should probably see it. You should probably see it because I would assume if you're watching or listening, you probably have seen Clue. But if not, check it out. We ruined the endings. You know who the killers are, but it's still good.
As
Actually, we didn't
mentioned
say
earlier.
who one of the killers was. We only said Peacock and everybody. We didn't say the other one.
No, there you go. You have a reason to
Yeah.
watch now.
You could find out that it was Miss Scarlet in the other one now. Oops.
Well, there goes that.
Yeah.
It's still available on Amazon
Paramount
Prime, as
Plus.
mentioned, and Paramount Plus, as mentioned
Yeah.
earlier. And if you have MGM Plus, more power to you, but it's on there too.
What's that? I didn't even
That's
know
a
that was
new.
thing.
There's a new service, MGM Plus, that.
Oh, I'm good.
And I thought to myself, oh, okay, so like all the Bond movies, right?
Bond.
And then I show up on HBO Max, and like, look, we now have all the James Bond movies. I'm like, well, what are they gonna have?
So- Poltergeist?
I think it's honestly just a retitling. It's weird because it used to be Stars, now it's MGM Plus, but Amazon owns the MGM catalog now, so the MGM catalog's everywhere. It's broken up all over the place.
I
It's
get so like Singing in the Rain, basically anything that used to be in the Great Movie Ride at Disney MGM Studios.
most of those are actually owned by Warner Brothers.
Oh yeah,
So it's even
Public
yeah,
Enemy.
yeah.
All right, so this
Spaceballs.
is a great plug.
It's
Spaceballs.
baseball.
There you go. By the way, today's episode is brought to you by MGM Plus minus.
Greg? Any final thoughts?
I just want to see this become like Rocky Horror, where people have it in theater and do stage production at the same time. I think that would be a lot of fun. Have rotating casts based on the different ending. This movie's fantastic, and I think it should be in that kind of fun cult classic theater situation. And like Jeff said, if you haven't seen it, go check it out.
Todd?
I'm actually going to quote the documentary. It makes me happy. I love it.
Very nice. Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely one of those ones that had it been introduced to me in that era where I was watching Airplane over and over again, was watching Spaceballs over and over again, it would have fit that rotation because it melds right into that same type of fun that anybody could enjoy at any age. So it's absolutely fantastic. Be sure to check it out. So if you guys don't have anything else, I think that'll do it for us this week on Flesh Wound Farce. Jeff Smith, thank you so much for joining us. And
big fun.
hopefully we can do it again when that Midnight Madness doc comes out.
Yeah, there you go. Digging deep.
No pressure, no rush or anything like that. But
hey, it took 5.5 years for the Clue one. We'll see.
We'll see.
Hopefully not. Hopefully not. No one's gonna wait 5 years for Midnight Madness. I know it's not quite.
Well, you never know.
And maybe no pandemic to interrupt anything. So
that could be a thing.
Fingers crossed.
Good point. Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, thank you so much, Jeff, for joining us. For Flesh Wound producer Todd and world famous juggler Greg Larson, I'm Ozzy V, and we'll see you next week right here on Flesh Wound Farce.